Hey guys, I just want to make a quick video reacting to the news from yesterday of the passing of Michael Brooks, co-host and former producer of The Majority Report and host of The Michael Brooks Show at age 37. I feel bad because I don't feel the same level of emotion that I felt before I cried yesterday a couple times, and throughout much of the 4 hour Remembering Michael Brooks special of The Majority Report today, I cried numerous times. And now it's just kind of settled into a dull background sadness of he's gone. Even when I'm not thinking consciously of it, it's just kind of sticking in the background, that knowledge that something's been lost. For celebrity deaths, I'll get back to that in a bit. Michael Brooks meant a surprising lot to me. Growing up Christian, as a Christian, I grew up in a very conservative culture. I was kind of taught that you didn't necessarily have to be Republican, but you had to be conservative. You had to be Republican adjacent. That being right wing on social issues was the conservative principles were God's principles, and anything else was immoral and demonic. I mean, in my curriculum in history, the only actual quote from Vladimir Lenin I was ever taught was the religion is the opiate of the masses quote. And I was taught that liberalism was evil and wrong, and not even the idea of leftism on the spectrum was not even in question. None of those ideas were even really confronted or discussed. It was a very American centric viewpoint as well. And so, as I grew older and I started understanding things and seeing things around me and thinking, how does this make sense? How do the people who I share beliefs with, how do my brothers and sisters, why do we differ in this? What's going on here? Well, and I was seeing these huge shortcomings and issues and weaknesses on the far right, particularly in the mesh of socioeconomic factors and issues, and I was seeing no answer to that. I saw that pretty directly ignored. I was taught that capitalism is the most Christian belief, and just a great many other things that were kind of taken for granted. And so, as I became confused and was kind of looking at how do I justify these obviously bad, obviously messed up things with this belief system that I hold and I still hold to this day as a Christian. What is the synthesis here? Because when I looked across at the left and at liberalism, growing up, there was this edge of new atheism. The people like Sam Harris and Richard Dawkins and Bill Maher, who were vocally, virulently anti-religion and anti-faith and distinctly secularist and it was people like Michael who showed me that these beliefs are not contradictory. That there can and there needs to be a spiritual element too, a driving force behind what we believe and the values we stand for, of love and compassion and empathy to those around us, an understanding of people's struggles and pains. And that was Michael's thesis. That was what he was working towards with his book in his last live streams before his passing. He was talking about having a politics and a system and a emphasis on love and empathy and compassion is what will drive solidarity and will drive people forward against the cruelty and the evil and misery that we see everywhere around us. He believed in being ruthless to systems and kind to people. Not only was Michael kind and caring, Michael was so smart. He was so incredibly knowledgeable, and this is something that listening to the 4 hours of tributes that people gave him today, this was something that really stuck out for most everybody. That is, Michael was so incredibly knowledgeable and intelligent. You could name any country on the map, just pick out any country, and Michael would know more about the politics and history of that country than 90% of people know about their own country. He had a dedication and a curiosity that was so evident in every interview and every speech and every take he gave. He looked at things through a truly global, truly international, and yet truly individual scope. He would talk about what everyday workers and everyday people, men and women and children, were going through all across the world, and that was what he cared about more than anything. And he knew who the people were who were pushing for the people and who were fighting for their people. He knew all of them. Growing up, I was never taught, I had never heard the names Lula da Silva or Evo Morales or Thomas Sankara or Patrice Lumumba. I'd never heard of any of these people in my history classes growing up. And yet, I don't think my history books ever even mentioned Nelson Mandela. I think I learned about him when he died. And yet these were people who were so crucial and so brilliant, and I had never heard a word about them. But Michael knew all of them. He knew all about the struggles that everyday people went through, and he cared. I remember the time that he gave us a cold open introduction to a show with the monologue about hegemony and the global hegemon, in which he defined hegemony, what it meant, where it was going, who it was, and something in that monologue, I remember, just clicked with me. And there I understood a concept that had been maybe on the edge of my mind, but had never truly fully clicked. And now that's something that I've talked about in a number of my last videos. That's something that I've been driven to explain and explore. And lastly, Michael was hilarious. His impressions were brilliant. His timing and wit was incredible and impeccable. I was looking forward to seeing what he would do and where he would go for the next 2-3 decades. I was expecting him to someday be like a Noam Chomsky or a Cornel West, a wizened man talking to and inspiring other young people in the future. And that's not going to happen. So all we can do is just do our best with the ones that he's inspired now. Rest in peace, Michael. We all miss you, and you have had an impact on so many people. Thanks, everybody.